Welcome to my show, The Woman's Connection. I'm Barrie-Louise Switzen. The Woman's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power, both on a personal and professional level. Our guest today is a woman who has survived a life-threatening disease. She has gone on and used this as a catalyst to spur her into other avenues. I would like to welcome my dear friend, Nadine Bell. Nadine, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure, Barrie.
Nadine, why don't we start and go into your background, what you were doing prior to this incident?
I am a psychotherapist, and I have a caseload of clients that I work with. And I'm also a professional facilitator, and I work with operations to assist them in achieving their goals.
Okay. Now, why don't we talk about what kind of symptoms were you experiencing?
I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
I was very nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
And then that evening I went to bed, and I had an incredibly sore throat. Sore doesn't even begin to say it. It was agonizingly painful. And when I tried to get out of bed, I had difficulty moving.
Wow. Were you concerned at this point, or were you just thinking
Very
you might have
concerned.
had a flu or something?
Oh, in the afternoon, I thought I had food poisoning. That is the first and last time I will ever diagnose myself.
Wow. Well, what prompted you to go to the hospital or decided to go to the hospital?
I didn't decide.
Oh,
I was
how did-
comatose.
You were comatose.
My husband's brother, who is a physician, came to the house to see how he was doing and decided that I had to go to the hospital immediately. As a matter of fact, he insisted that I go to a hospital a half a mile from my house as opposed to his hospital 20 minutes away. And my infectious disease doctor says that if I had gone to my brother-in-law's hospital, I would not have made it
Wow, that fast.
that fast.
Well, how long was it before they diagnosed what you were in the hospital for?
When I came in, they decided it was spinal meningitis. They did a spinal tap to guarantee that their diagnosis was correct, but they caught on pretty quickly that that's what it was.
Wow. Well, from what I pulled off of the web, from the spinal meningitis website, it states it is an infection of the fluid and lining of the brain. In blood infections, it is fought off by white blood cells. In the spinal fluid, there are no white blood cells, and there is nothing there to fight off infection. Once the infection starts, it can spread very rapidly, which is apparently what happened with you, throughout the body. This means you do not have time to book a flight to fly back way across the country, and I think this is really great considering how much I travel. Meningitis can cause a great deal of brain damage in just a few hours and can kill somebody in 24 hours. Apparently, there are two types of spinal meningitis. I don't know if you were aware of this, but I guess you would be after you spent so much time in the hospital. Fungal infections, have completely different symptoms than bacterial infections do. Most meningitis is either viral or bacterial, and usually accompanied by many of the symptoms you mentioned: headache, stiff neck, nausea, vomiting, drowsiness, seizures, high temperature, joint aching, joint pain, dislike of light, visual disturbances. And these are just the adult symptoms, and the children's symptoms are really different. People should really check the website because it has a lot of information. What I found to be frightening is that the disease is transmitted from person to person in the same fashion as the common cold. That is the respiratory route. They can also say you can catch it by kissing, hence kissing contact. This is because in healthy people, the meningococcus, I think I mispronounced it, bacterium is carried in the throat. What to me is frightening also is that people can carry the germ for days, weeks, or months, wow, without becoming ill, and at any one time, about 10% of the population are carriers. So that's spinal meningitis. How did you feel when you were diagnosed with this?
Very worried. I knew that it could be devastating, and if it did kill you, I knew that it could seriously damage you. And I was very concerned, first about my brain and what that effect would have on me. And at the time that I was hospitalized, I had been the president of the International Association of Facilitators for about 6 weeks. And I was sent an email by the chair of our forthcoming conference, and he wanted me to review their contract. And so I remember having just come out of intensive care. I spent 2 days in intensive care.
Wow.
I came out of intensive care and was in acute care, and I read the contract. Now, I couldn't feed myself. It had affected my coordination.
Uh-huh.
So I dictated to my husband all the things that he was to email back to the chair, and I tore the contract apart. And the last sentence to him was, "It's not that I don't trust you, it's I'm checking out my brain."
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And the next day he called and I heard him say, "Lady, there's nothing wrong with your brain." And I said, "Terrific." But that wasn't the case for my ability to walk.
What
I had to
happened
learn to
there?
walk again. It just ravages the muscles. And so the length of time that you are in bed makes it even worse. And so I literally had to learn to walk all over
Well,
again.
how long before you were able to get up to walk?
They had me up within the first couple of days. Once I got into acute care,
Uh-huh.
that wonderful physical therapy team would come to my room and lift me out of bed and put me in what they call a heart chair. And it's a flat bed that sits up into a chair. And I would sit there for as long as I could. It started out an hour, and then I went to an hour and a half and 2 hours. Then they moved me down to the rehab floor. And while I was still in bed, however, they did exercises with my legs to keep them moving. And one day they had me stand up, which was really scary. I mean, I wasn't
But
sure
you
I could
just
do
kind
it.
of wobbly, or
Well, no, I just
yes.
stood next to the bed, and they locked their knees into mine so that I wouldn't fall and all. But I'm a pretty good-sized woman, and the idea of having these weak legs hold me up was terrifying. But it worked. And then we moved me down to rehab, and they took me down to the rehab room. And I started out my journey of walking on a walker with 12 steps.
With 12 steps.
Yeah.
The most important steps of your life?
I think so. I think so. It led me to believe that I could walk. And I was real determined to make that 12, 24. And I already could see ahead from the 24 to the 48. And I knew that I could do it.
Well, let's go back. What were you trying to prove by doing the contract after being in intensive care for 2 days? I mean, you said
It was
you would
really, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody. It was
But
really
you-
important for me to find out what my abilities were. I knew I had lost the hearing in my left ear, and I suspected that it was permanent, and later learned that it was a permanent loss, which was a difficult thing for me, even though I had said that if the only problem I have as a result of this is the loss of hearing in my left ear, that's okay. Until the day they read the results of the test to me and said that you will never get the hearing back in that ear. That was a very difficult sentence to hear.
How did you react?
I went back to my room and I crawled into bed with my clothes on. And when they came in to give me take my vitals, I gave them my arm and took the thermometer. When they came in to do my respiratory therapy, I did it and then curled back up and went back to sleep. And every time somebody came in, I just went back. I did whatever they asked and I went back to sleep. And then my physical therapist came in and she said, "I didn't think you'd be feeling up to coming down. It'd tire you too much to go down to the doctor." And I said, "That's not it." And she said, "What is it?" And I said, "I won't hear again." And I wish I could remember what she said, Barrie, because all I remember is when she finished talking with me, I sat the bed up, I put the phone back on the hook, and within 2 minutes I had a phone call, and I've been going ever since.
So it didn't stop you at all?
No, not at all.
Do you find that any other problems as a result of this?
Well, let me go back. I had to grieve the loss of the hearing in that ear. That was a really important piece. It was a loss, but I just wasn't going to stay there. I did my grieving. I let it go. Now let's see what I can do. And since I make my living in working with groups and listening to what they have to say, it's really important to be able to hear. And so until I was able to get before a group and see what the challenges I would have, I was a little concerned. But I just was going to make it work somehow or other.
Did you find the challenges daunting at first?
No, because I took them in little steps. For example, when they would bring me my tray, and it was difficult because I had trouble with my hands as well as my legs, and I had difficulty taking the top off. Then the nurses started doing things for me, and I had to stop them and say, "Don't. I want to see what I can do today as compared to yesterday. I can always ask you to help me, but let me see what I can do for myself."
So,
And so I took little steps, every little step I could take.
So you build up your self-esteem as well as your muscle coordination at the same time.
And my stamina. They used to have to bathe me, turn me in bed, bathe me, the whole shooting match. The day they let me do my first sponge bath and I put on my clothes, that was all the energy I had for the entire morning. I was exhausted. I just leaned back in bed and rested for the entire rest of the morning.
Now, you were in the hospital for 5 weeks.
5 long weeks.
I can imagine. It seems like an eternity as far as I'm concerned. But you also held a meeting. You had a board meeting.
Yes, I did.
Wait, before you answer, how far into your recovery period before you had this meeting?
A couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks.
Okay.
I was already in rehab.
Mm-hmm.
The situation was this. The executive board of the International Association of Facilitators was going to be meeting in Dallas. They already had their tickets. They were coming in from all over the world.
So did they meet in your hospital room?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, where else,
Oh, well, no, they offered me a conference room, but I knew that I couldn't sit up for any longer than 2 or 3 hours at a time. And our board meetings run 8 to 10 hours on several successive days. And so I figured I would do a much better job of using this electrical bed to sit me up, lay me back, get out of the bed, sit in the wheelchair. But I'd be better off in my room. And since I was alone in a double room,
you had enough room.
I had enough room. They wheeled in the hospital beds, the hospital tables for all of the board, and they had their own tables. And we put the flip charts up on the walls. And my infectious disease doctor came in and he said, "Are we charging you for meeting space?" And I said, "No, I hope not. You're charging us enough for everything else." So we had a wonderful meeting.
Too bad you didn't tape it. I mean, that's a record kind of meeting, I would say.
It really was fun. It was very helpful to me. You asked me before what I was trying to prove.
Right.
This enabled me to stay professional at a time when I was highly dependent on everybody for everything.
So this lifted your spirits.
It lifted my spirits. It brought me together with people that I loved and who cared about me a great deal. I was running the meeting. I'm the president of the organization, so I had to prepare the agenda. I had to handle everything, and it enabled me to really push the envelope, see what I could do.
What was the reaction of the participants?
They were amazed. They want to know if I really wanted to go ahead with this, and I said absolutely.
They
And-
obviously don't know you. Okay.
And the one shocking experience was that the chair of one of our task forces lives in Dallas, where I'm from, and I knew they would want to see her, so I called and left a message on her machine. "Hi, this is Nadine. The exec board will be here, and we would like to see you. So I want to have you come over one day in the next 2 days. Now, I'm in the hospital, and so you'll come and meet in our hospital room. I've had spinal meningitis and nearly died, but I'm really fine, and the phone will be off the hook, so you won't interrupt us. Drop in anytime you want to, and we'll see you and deal with your business then." She said it was really quite a shock to get that kind of message on her answering machine.
Did she save the message for you for posterity
No.
or something? So you were in the hospital for a total of 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
All right, and then you came out, but before we continue with that, what was the procedure for you to get better? I understand the physical therapy, but did they give you a
Before that, they gave me antibiotics
Antibiotics.
as soon as I came into the hospital.
Okay, but what about your family? Because it's a contagious disease.
Highly contagious. Not only my family, but anybody who had been with me had to go on antibiotics.
But what period of time?
2 days.
2 days.
In other words, I had been at a wedding out of town the weekend before. All those people had to go on antibiotics too.
Wow.
Anybody who had been in my presence had to go on a 2-day supply of antibiotics. It turned their urine orange. It was quite an experience for them.
I can imagine.
But they were okay. Nobody got sick from me. Nobody.
Did
And
they?
I'm very grateful.
But did you ever discover what caused it? What was the catalyst that happened?
No, we did not find the source for me, but
Thank you.
your information explained that we carry it in our bodies. I mean, 10 to 20% of us at any point in time has the bacteria, and I had the bacterial spinal meningitis.
Okay.
And we have that bacteria in our bodies. It is transferred on droplets. So if somebody sneezes next to you, or somebody spits while they're talking or whatever, that's how you can pick it up.
Oh, it's great living in New York. Okay.
Any place. I mean, it's all over. I've now learned in the last year, there have been 12 people that I have learned about in this country and one abroad that have had bacterial spinal meningitis. 9 are dead, 1 is a vegetable,
Oh my
1's a
God.
quadriplegic, and I'm here with you.
Woo! That's awesome.
It is awesome.
That's really very, very frightening when you stop and think about those kind of odds.
And not only is that frightening, they will often mistake spinal meningitis for flu. A little boy, 10 years old, was in the hospital, my hospital emergency room, several days before I was there, maybe a week before, and they sent him home with the flu. He came back and he died.
I think I remember you telling me
Yeah.
about that. That is really pathetic because it is so rare. Well, I would say it's rare.
It's not seen that frequently, and I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it before I got it.
But
I'm
now
now
you're
very
attuned.
clear when I pick it up. And I met a woman whose son went to high school in Philadelphia. He got sick and died in less time than it took me to get sick and get to the hospital. She never
Whoa.
got to Philadelphia to see him.
That's potent.
So it's real, real serious.
Well, there's a vaccine now that you can, I was reading on the website, there's some kind of a vaccine that you can take to keep your immune system from ever contracting this, especially if you're traveling to certain areas of the world. No?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. That's something I have to check into
But
because
you would,
I
yes, and
travel
other
so much.
people would do well to check into it too.
Yes.
And to be really clear about symptoms and not to just let things go. I think you have some symptoms to share with people.
Yes.
This is a serious disease.
This is wild. Wow. Now, moving on, after you were in the hospital for 5
5
weeks, you went to a conference 2 weeks later.
Well, I had been engaged 7 months before to present at a conference in Corpus Christi, which is a couple hours south of Dallas. And I had lined up somebody else to take my place at the conference because I didn't want to leave them high and dry.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to go.
Was this to prove that you could go, or
No,
is
it was
this
a
because-
commitment that I had made that I wanted to keep. It was something that I wanted to do, not only for them, but for myself. And I watched my progress throughout the weeks beforehand,
Mhm.
and I figured that I could probably do it, and then decided that I could. And someone said to me, well, what does your doctor say? And I said, doctor? I hadn't thought to ask him. So the next time he came in, I asked him, and this was my rehab doctor, and I
Right.
asked him if it would be okay. And he said, Corpus Christi, a couple hours away. It's going to be when again, is it? I said, April 15th, and I got out of the hospital on April 1st. He said, yeah, I think you can do it. And I thought, good, because if you said no, I would have gone anyway.
Well, it's nice to have the backing of your doctor.
It's very
I mean,
nice. I did not feel that I was pushing it too hard. And that was one thing they were very concerned about. They would lock me in bed at night. They'd put the footrails up. I told them I wouldn't do anything dumb. I hadn't come this far to do something stupid and fall backwards.
Well, they weren't taking any chances.
They weren't taking any chances.
I mean, you've already done so much that's out of the ordinary for a hospital stay anyway.
It was unusual, yes. I don't think they had many patients like me. But I didn't do anything that was dumb. I really didn't. I was very careful. I let people know what I was doing. I stretched myself just a little bit to go to the next step.
How do you think this has changed your life?
I am profoundly grateful. I closed a conference yesterday, and I asked folks how many there said thanks when they walked. And not one person in the room expressed gratitude for walking. And then I told them my story. I said, I am grateful for every step I take, every step. Every day is exciting. Every day is a blessing. I hadn't seen it that way before the hospital. I didn't think I took things for granted, but apparently I did.
Makes you open up your eyes to different things. Your values change.
And to be profoundly appreciative for that which you do have. I think too many of us look at what we don't have,
Mhm.
and we don't look at even, quote, the simple things, unquote, that we do have. I'm grateful I have one ear that works. Life would be really different if I wasn't able to hear anymore. So I could be miserable about the fact that I've lost hearing in one ear, and I know that there are people who are. But I resolved to get out of this illness better, not bitter. And that was my mantra throughout the hospital stay that I had.
All right, so what are some of the ways that you've gotten better?
I'm more patient.
Mm-hmm.
My family will tell you that is a lovely change. I stretch more.
What do you mean
I
you
go
stretch?
for things that I might not have ordinarily been willing to attempt before.
Chances as far as business, personal?
Business. I recently had the opportunity to work with some of the world's leaders, some of the world's religious leaders who gathered in Dallas, and I did the facilitation of that group. I'm not sure that before the hospital stay I would have gone after that.
That's hard to believe, that you wouldn't have gone after that.
But it came to me, and I embraced it. It was a wonderful opportunity to work with people who are interested in making a difference in the world, and it was a real privilege for me to do that. I wanted to work on things that are meaningful, and that's where I'm putting my energies, professionally, personally, in things that will hold meaning for me and the people around me.
What's your next step?
My next step, I will probably be working with the UN. I've been talking to folks at the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, about doing some work both here and abroad with them, which is something that was not in my vision before I got sick.
Well, you're a traveler too, so
Yes.
it's just follows suit that this is where you would be going. What words of advice would you give to the audience?
Be careful. Be grateful. You never know when your life is going to change in an instant. And look for the best in things. I really had many opportunities to feel sorry for myself in the hospital.
I'd say so.
That's not where I wanted to be. That's not where I wanted to live. I remember the respiratory therapist came in to give me a treatment one evening, and dinner had come, and when she finished, she said, "I bet you just can't wait to get back to that dinner." And I said, "I'm really kind of excited about it. We have fish for the first time since I'm here." And she said, "You excite easily, don't you?" And I thought for a minute, and I said, "Yes, I do. And I really like living that way."
It's the happy way to live.
Much so, yes.
There's so much sadness in this world. It's like you can see the glass is either half full or half empty.
Right.
And it's also what you're going to make out of it. So being an entrepreneur in your own business, you've had to take, I feel, the glass is half full versus half empty, and move on and do something and spur you on, because if you don't take chances, where are you going to be?
And I think that gives me a thought in terms of something for your audience, and that is we have choices. We sometimes don't recognize it, but we have choices. In fact, Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, said, "We may have no choice over what life brings us. We do have a choice over how we experience it."
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's like, why go around crying if you can laugh and happy and see the sun? I can't be around negative people, and I can't be around depressed people, because then they have a tendency to bring you down. And life is beautiful when you think of the alternative.
But a lot of times we don't think of the alternative, and sometimes we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so what I encourage folks to do, and I work very diligently on now that I'm out of the hospital, is look at the good stuff. Look at what's really working, and continue to work on the stuff that's not, and make it more effective.
That is great. Nadine, thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful hearing about your story, and thank you also for joining us. I hope you've learned something about spinal meningitis and how contagious and deadly it can be. So please, if you'd like, you can contact me at the Women's Connection or look them up on the website. But I would really like to hear from you. So please write. Thank you for joining us. Bye now. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
So we'll
What a reaction.